So I'm going to read our regular beginning here. In accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, we are conducting this meeting virtually. The Public Works Commission is conducting this meeting on March 10th, 2021 at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on the Zoom platform and in accordance with the town's policy directive and guidelines issued on April 1st, 2020 and amended May 7th. I ask that all Public Works Commissioners, town staff, and presenters activate their video and mute their microphones unless they have something to say or are participating in committee dialogue. For members of the public, when I open the meeting to public comment, in order to be recognized, please use the raise hand option in Zoom or use *9 by phone. If you are recognized, please state your name and address. This meeting is being recorded and will be available for later viewing on the town's website. I, James Terry, hereby call this meeting to order. All commission votes will be taken via roll call. We will start with an attendance roll call of all commissioners. When I announce your name, please reply. James Terry, present. Andrew Boardman.
Present.
David DeLong.
Present.
Jeff Vassar.
Present.
Casey Winslow.
Here.
Thank you. The first item on our agenda is review and approval of the minutes of the February 10th, 2021 Public Works Commission meetings. Are there any comments or questions? Would someone like to make a motion, please? Casey,
I move to approve the meeting minutes for 2021.
thank you. Is there a second?
I second it.
Thank you. Okay, on a roll call vote. James Terry, aye. Andrew Boardman,
Aye.
David DeLong,
Aye.
Jeff Vassar,
Approved.
Casey Winslow.
Aye.
Thank you. The meeting is approved. Minutes are approved unanimously. The next thing we do every meeting is we look at the future meeting dates and the possible agenda items that will be on them. So our next meeting is April 14th. We will still be on the Zoom platform, and we will actually have the roads program public meeting at that time. Today, we are having the briefing regarding that. And then on May 12th, our meeting will have the water and sewer rate public hearing, and we'll be having our discussion for preparation for town meeting, which is going to occur on June 13th at the Doug White Field on the high school campus. Are there any questions regarding the next couple of meetings? Okay, thank you. So the next item on our agenda is a briefing of the roads program for FY21 / maybe 22. And I understand that Steve is not here right now, but
Stefan Shorteville.
Stefan will be leading our discussion.
Yeah, I'll do a quick introduction. Stefan Shorteville is a public works engineer and works with Steve Dukran and has been involved, I think Stefan, is it your third year public works?
Yeah, I'm going on my third year. Yep.
Excellent. Very good. So he's the most senior engineer we have upstairs, correct?
That's correct.
All right. So that said, welcome.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Like Alan said, my name is Stefan Shorteville. I'm a public works engineer in the engineering department. And today I'm going to do the briefing on the roads program, which is 2020 and 2021 roads program. Next page, Anna. So an overview, basically in Concord, what we strive to do in the roads program is we try to maintain and repair 108 miles of road that we have. And also in doing that, we try to keep our roads at a high condition level. I'll explain further down the road what that means, the condition level. But in Concord, we have 108 miles of roads subdivided into local road, collectors, and arterials. Local roads are mainly small roads in neighborhood with low traffic volumes on them. Collectors and arterials are roads with higher volume of traffic, and that goes from high population density areas to higher population density areas. Once that is done, explaining the roads we have, what we do also based on that. So we decide how's the most effective way to prioritize the treatments that we're going to do between major and residential roads. Also, during that overview or review project, we coordinate with other utilities, water, sewer, CMLP, National Grid, to determine if there are any utilities that need to be updated or changed in streets. And we incorporate that also in the reasoning of why we pick certain roads instead of others. And doing that also, we take a look at drainage issues, and we do improvements to sidewalks, ramps, and street signs. Next slide. So like I previously mentioned, while we're doing roads, maintaining roads, we also do something that's called, we scan our roads with automation. So in 2018, we started a contract with a company called StreetScan, where they came in and scanned all our roads for us. And that scanning is done automatically with a scanner. And basically it measures all the different type of distress in the roads. And it gives it a PCI number. PCI is Pavement Condition Index. It's a scale from 100 to 0, 100 being a new road. Back in 2018, the PCI in Concord was 78. Next slide. So most of you, when you're driving in town, you'll notice like on the surface, different type of distress, what we call distress. So you'll see oxidation and raveling. It's when you see that the surface is not smooth, it's breaking apart. And when that happens, there's a certain type of treatment that is recommended. So that's why we do the PCI, and then we go and observe what kind of distress we see, because different type of distress have different type of treatment that recommended. So these four right here are the most popular ones. There's many more, but that's most likely what you would see as a layperson driving on the road. It would be raveling. It would be rutting. When you see like there's like maybe a tire mark on the road, the road's not level. There'll be some fatigue crack. Fatigue crack is when you see multiple cracks in the road. And longitudinal cracks is when you see a long line along the travel lane. Next slide. So now knowing all those different types of distress in the PCI that we get from StreetScan, there's what we call the road deterioration curve. Basically, a road deteriorates based on that curve. At the beginning, it starts slow. And as you progress in time, let me back up 1 second. The x-axis here is time, and the y-axis is PCI. So within time, the PCI goes down. It starts slow, and then it increases exponentially with time. So when we're doing our developing a strategy, okay, that's when we make assumptions to say, instead of leaving a road go down all the way to, let's say, the reclamation part and do a new road, it's better to keep up with your maintenance, because higher up, earlier up in the road life cycle, the road deteriorates less. So if the more time you could spend up here, the better it is for the less money you'll have to spend, because those maintenance up here also are less expensive than redoing a road. Next slide, Anna. So to hit on that point again, make your resource go the distance. As you can see, that same curve is here again is important, so that people know that why we try to put an emphasis on maintenance, because it's better to do maintenance up early on in the roads program, instead of waiting for the road to fail and then doing a full reclamation in a new road. Yes, it looks good to have a new road, but it costs money, and you get less for your money, less work in town in general. Next slide, Anna. Okay, so now that you know about the reasoning of how we do our assessments. You know about the PCI. With those two in hand, back in 2019, we created a 5-year program. That 5 years started back in 2020, which was done during the 2019-2020 roads program. These were the streets that were done. Then in the 2021 fiscal year, which is 21-22, last year due to COVID, we didn't do any work. So that's why this year the briefing is taking into account the roads from 2020 and the roads from 2021, and so on and so forth. So there's a list of our 5-year program from all the way starting in 2020 all the way to 2024. Next slide. Here's to visualize the program. It's color coded. Red is what we did in 2019. Like I said before, 2020 and 2021 are going to combine into one program. That's the green and purple. You can see where these are laid out on the map. And then 2022 is what we intend to do next year. And 2023 is what we expect to do the following year. One thing of note in our plan, some of the streets that were listed in the 2021 program, due to constraint with budget, we won't be able to get to all those roads this year. So these roads are going to be prioritized in the next fiscal year. And we'll keep moving up that list and changing it as we deem appropriate. Next slide. Okay, now let's talk about the program in hand, the 2020-2021 construction season. So due to COVID budget restraints, that program has 3 phases in it. Phase 1, which is the 2020 construction program. We already have a contract with Newport Construction Corporation, and they're scheduled to start early spring with that contract. And that contract encompasses Warner Street, Park Lane, Lewis Road, Bedford Court, Partridge Lane. All these roads will get different treatments. Warner Street will be a full reclaim. Park Lane will be a full reclaim also. Lewis a full reclaim. Bedford a full reclaim. And Partridge Lane would be a mill and fill. And those treatments are based on their PCIs and the distress that we notice on the streets. Phase 2 of the 2020-2021 construction program is the Prescott neighborhood. This contract is going out to bid later this month, and hopefully we'll get a contract signed by June, and by late June, early summer, July, we'll get going with that. And that's a full reconstruction of the Prescott neighborhood, which encompass Prescott Road, Cranefield Road, Arrowhead Road, Peter Spring Road, and Minuteman Road Drive. And also, remember earlier I said that some roads are, it's not just the PCI and the distress. We see also what type, if the other department needs to do utility work on those roads. So late last year or mid last year, so late last year, the water department replaced the entire water line in that neighborhood. So we let them go first, and now we're gonna have a brand new road with brand new utility in it. Phase 3, it has Hubbard Street and the Stowe Street parking lot reconstruction. The first one, Hubbard Street, our staff is still currently designing that. Hopefully we'll get a design in soon and go to bid in the next month or so, and hopefully get construction started during the summer. Stowe Street parking lot is in the same boat. We already have a designer already, but we still have some internal conversations to have before we could bid that out and start construction. But all of that is scheduled to be done during the construction season. And then additionally, not listed by name, we have some mill and fill areas. Basically, there's some major arterials when there's potholes that are becoming too much for the highway department to take care of. We take care of those in sections. So what we do, we go, let's say on Main Street, We take 50 feet section and we do a micro mill, and then we resurface that area. That helps our highway department. It looks better, and it's part of our roadway program also. Then there's the preservation part. Oh, sorry, Anna, one more. Then there's the, nope, go back, sorry.
Sorry.
Then there's the preservation part. We currently do a crack sealing. Basically, asphalt's gonna crack. No matter like if you do a good job or not, eventually it's gonna start cracking. And those cracks allow water to go into the sub base, and that's what accelerate that deterioration curve. So once you hit those cracks early with some crack sealing, it helps and it prevents water from going to the sub base and accelerating the deterioration of your road. Next slide. So the 2020-21 program is going to get its funding from the 2021 debt authorization. We had some leftover money that we encumbered from the fiscal year 17, 18, 19, and 20 that we're going to use. We're also going to use Chapter 90 money. We also have a drainage account and sidewalk account. All these accounts are going to be used to fund this year's program. Next slide. Also, before I go to questions, we wanted to bring that to the attention of the board. Moving forward, engineering department thinks it would be a wiser decision to have this meeting in the fall, so that when we have public input, we could maybe incorporate those into the design before we go out to bid in the winter for the next construction season. So moving forward, we would like to have that meeting sometime in the fall, and then have the meeting with the public a month later in the fall also. So any design input or any input that we get at that meeting, if appropriate, could be incorporated in the design to get bid out early winter and construction next year. Also, for the 2020-21 roads program, all the neighbors have been contacted by, we sent a letter to everybody, and before construction starts again, we'll attach flyers to doors informing people of what to expect, when is it gonna start. We also have the website that we're gonna update with any pertinent information on that. And with that, I think that's everything I have, people. Thank you for your patience, and I'll answer any questions right now.
Thank you, Stefan. Let me start it off. The spreadsheet that was shown had some more columns to it to the right, which shows breakdowns of cost. You know, there's estimated cost, engineering costs, miscellaneous costs, and drainage costs. And I wasn't really aware of the fact that considerable amounts in addition to the contractor's expense of just doing the road. So this is part of the roads program budget, is that correct?
So yeah, so I'm not sure which version of the presentation you have. I hid those columns in this presentation, but yes, we have different accounts that we use. So we have the bonded money, we have the state money, we have drainage accounts, we have sidewalk accounts. All of those are pulled together and reallocated to the different projects that we have to do the work in town. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Yeah, I think so. So is it correct that, well, let me put it this way. How much of the engineering is done by internal staff and how much of it is done by engineers that we hire?
So I could speak to this year's contract. So let's say this year's contract, the 2020-2021 roads program was done in-house by the staff. The Peter Spring neighborhood was contracted out to a company, HSI. Both parts of it, the water main project was done by them also, and they did the design for the 2021 roads program. and Hubbard Street is being done in-house. So it depends, it varies. Last year we were short in staff. I think that's why we subbed out the 2021 contract to HSI, but we try to do as much as we can in-house, moving in general.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Other commissioner questions or comments? Casey, I saw Casey's hand first.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. I'm curious about Warner Street. A couple of meetings ago, we talked about that being a private road when we were talking about plowing. Is it maybe a portion of it is private?
Thank you for the question, Casey. So yes, Warner Street goes from Pond Street all the way to Lawsbrook. The section that we are doing is the public section, which extends from Pond Street and about 290 feet in. That's when the public section ends and the private section continues all the way to Lawsbrook. So I suppose the meeting that you were talking about was about plowing.
Yes,
there's-
Aaron was going over it, but
Yeah.
that answers my question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jeff?
A couple quick questions. Thanks, Stefan. One is on the, we talked about the phase 2 improvements a couple meetings ago in the Prescott Street neighborhood. And at that point, there was discussion about if needed, there could be full depth reconstruction to deal with some drainage issues. Your summary talked about it being reclamation. Is there still a possibility that full depth could be included in that project? Should there be some grading issues necessary to deal with some drainage issues?
Stefan, I think you're muted still.
Sorry, guys. Thanks, Jeff, for the question. So the 2021 roads program, the Prescott neighborhood, I just gave a brief overview of it.
Yeah.
But there's different treatment that we're doing in different areas. So
Okay.
there is some milling, there is some full depth also that we're doing.
Okay,
We are adding some drainage at a low spot on Peter Springs.
Okay.
Where that first curve turn, at the first curve.
Yep.
But we will be addressing any drainage issue with the grades that we have in our design, basically,
okay.
to be brief.
And then another-
Mr. Chair, can I add a clarification? Steve Dukran. Jeff, we consider reclamation as full depth,
Oh, okay, sorry.
right?
My mistake.
Yep.
And not just another quick question, maybe more for Alan. You talked about tapping into the drainage accounts and the sidewalk accounts. Because I'm new to the commission, what are those and how are they different from a capital account?
Well, the answer is they're all, capital. We have different line items depending on, they're not always combined into one project. So
Okay,
there may be sidewalk initiatives that are completely independent or drainage initiatives, but basically those are the resources and funds that we draw on basically to leverage, get the best bang for the buck. So sometimes when you have someone mobilized with the equipment, materials, you can realize, sort of more
Yep.
return on the investment. But in essence, they're similar in the way that they're basically capital improvements around town and, not just simple maintenance.
okay, thanks.
David?
Two quick questions. One, first, Stefan, I gotta know, is that Walden Pond behind you? I hope that's not a live shot.
No, it's not a live shot, but I wish I were there.
I had to ask. Also, as another new guy, this is actually more of a question for Alan, is what input can we help you with? What decisions are still to be made? The comments from the commissioners that would be helpful for you here, because we're not gonna tell you, or I'm not gonna tell you, oh, go do this road versus that road. You guys have your priorities set. How can we help you?
Well, I will say, I'll give you a very broad response and I'll then turn it over to Steve Dukran. As the water sewer superintendent for 24 years, you really don't want to hear my idea of what you need to do with the roads. However, I can tell you this. We are looking at, the challenge and what Stefan mentioned is we need to do a good job explaining what the needs are. One of the larger, line items in the town's budget with capital are roads programs. The reason is everybody gets the benefit. They're not inexpensive. And if you don't maintain them, they get more expensive. So, we have to find and strike the right balance as far as where are we doing, preventative early treatment versus reclamation. And I think with this, we have a new group in engineering. Steve Dukran, to his credit, has lots of experience elsewhere. We have the benefit where over the next year, the new team is going to reassess what are the needs. We're looking at, Stefan mentioned the street scan tool that now needs to be reevaluated every 5 years, 3 to 5 years, you have to relook at it. And I think there's some challenges as far as how good is the baseline information we're using and drawing from. And in essence, how do we then communicate to the community what the needs are and get the support for the funding? A problem with a large line item is it's easy to start whittling away at it. Another problem we have is special interest can pop up where there's a particular area, neighborhood, what have you, that is very vocal and they're going to want attention. And our challenge and the boards, ultimately the commissions, is to look at the balance and look at the best interest of the community, because staff has a difficult time telling one resident they are, preferred over another. I think we're going to use the science and the technology. And part of the idea of having these meetings is to hear from the general public and hear where the interests and concerns are. But Steve Dukran, do you want to add to that? Because you kind of.
Yeah, I'll probably just repeat what you said, Alan. There's still many communities that pick their streets based on the calls that they get, the complaints that they get. But for years, many other communities have moved forward with using that science and technology, like you said. We are using the technology that Street Scan provides us. There are a dozen other ones out there. We want this commission to make sure that we continue to do that, because you'll never have enough money. I tell you that you'll never have enough money to do all the streets. And if we listen to everybody out there, we might be doing the wrong streets, setting the wrong priorities. We might be focusing on minor streets and ignoring the larger streets and letting those larger streets fall into reclamation. That's going to cost 3 times the cost if you were to catch it earlier on. So we want to stay with this method, and we do want to reevaluate every 3 years. I think that's the average that most communities use, and so that you can reassess your priorities every time or refine the program. And this is also what we're going to use as we advocate for dollars. The meeting that I was earlier, I tried to make a point that other projects are tapping into our roads program funds, and that cannot be sustained because our streets continue, the PCI level will continue to deteriorate. The larger streets, the arterials, the commercial streets, they see a lot of heavy traffic, and they don't give you the life. If you put even a brand new street, you wouldn't get the life that you would expect for a residential street. So therefore, you have to keep up with those streets as well. And so a more comprehensive program is to have enough money to address those large needs, and also not to ignore the residential and local streets. So that's what we were gearing towards. Trying to make Stefan our resident expert in pavement management. And I thought I'd give him a vacation in the Caribbean, but he's doing a fine job managing the program to this point.
Thank you.
Andrew, did I see that you had a question?
Yeah, I just had a question. This is dating back a couple of years, so it probably predates you guys, but I thought I'd throw it out there anyway. Back when they resurfaced the Kai's Road lot, as well as the one behind the other primary lot in town center, we also saw plans for the reworked Hubbard Street lot, which you mentioned, as well as the municipal parking that's across the street from that affordable units. I don't, that might actually be on Hubbard Street as well. I'm not totally sure. And the Fairyland lot. So I'm wondering where those dropped off or where those are looking to be added to the program, because I know they're not in great shape either. I know over the last couple of years, you guys have had some challenges and stuff, but it seemed like we got a lot of presentations about parking lots all at once, and then 2 or 3 of them just vanished. So I just didn't know where they fit in.
Stephen, do you want to
Uh,
respond to that?
Yeah, so the new staff, we don't really have the history with the lots. We had heard that the Stowe Street lot that we have planned for this year, there was a commitment by Public Works to rehabilitate the pavement. We intend to look at the other lots, so we don't have a schedule for the other lots, and everything is contingent upon how much money we're getting. We have over the last year and the current year, even going to the future, at least fiscal year 22, we don't expect any larger appropriations. So funneling money towards parking lots, we just have to be careful about it. So we'll take one at a time and do our best to at least maintain them to a level where it's acceptable.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then,
Andrew, I'll add to that, just for the commission. The Cambridge Turnpike was a very large project. And while nobody, in the Zoom today was part of the design and early construction, it was a significant investment. And it really did have an impact, I believe, on some of the other, opportunities. And again, it's just simply balancing what funds we have available, making the best use of it. But I think moving forward, we don't see a Cambridge Turnpike type project on the horizon, at least immediately, and it will allow us to focus a little bit more on some of the more pressing needs to be defined over the next year, I think.
and then just one final question. You said you had a final plan or nearly a final plan in place for the Stowe Street lot. Are you still predicting more parking spots as a result of that? I know that was one of the emphasis was with the redesign. I think it had to do with the redesign of the umbrella or something, that there was part of the commitment was adding 5, 10, I can't remember how many spots. I just wanted to see if that was still part of it.
Yes, Andrew, thanks for the question. So yeah, that's still the case. I don't have the exact numbers on top of my mind right now, but the design that I was working on did increase it by a good amount. I would say at least a dozen more parking spots. But that's still pending because I made some changes. So you see at that Stowe Street parking lot, there's that guardrail right at the beginning of it. So if we remove that guardrail, we could inch up on that landscaping area and gain some more room in the backside. But yes, to answer your question, we would gain a couple more parkings or up to 10 more parking spots, and that's a lot.
No, it's a lot. Thank you.
Okay, I've got a question, I think, for Stephen. I want to give you a situation with the road that I live on. They had an overlay a number of years ago, maybe 7 or 8 years ago. But it appears that in the last year or two, potholes are arriving all over the length of the road. How do you know, let's assume that contractor ABC was the one who did our road. Are you a way available to keep that into the back of your mind when you have to go out for bid for other contracts as to whether you think that ABC was a good contractor or a not so good contractor?
Okay. Most of our paving contractors in the region are good contractors. There's an occasion you may find one that's questionable, and you don't want them to work on another job for you. We normally get 1 year warranty with any job. So I don't know what has been done in this town for the last several years when work's been done in terms of quality control. But this year we are going to implement some testing. And that's important because, you know, when the material is done at the plant and leaves the plant, if it gets delayed, it may lose temperature, it may lose, it may start to segregate. Any kind of thing can happen. You have to look at the temperature of the road itself. If you don't want to put on hot asphalt and when the road is too cold. A number of things that we have to put controls over. But this year we're going to introduce actual testing, both at the plant and we'll full course of pavement and take that back and do some braking to get some strength tests. And we are building into the contract that if they don't measure up to our standards, they can be penalized. So that's an incentive for them to really make sure that they are doing things right. In terms of how long the pavement will last, it all depends. If you get a brand new street, residential street, you should get as many as 20 years of service. Obviously, we have to do some maintenance along the way. Like Stefan described earlier, you want to do the crack sealing in a timely fashion before the water gets in and freezes and tears up the pavement. So if you don't do that preservation or that routine maintenance, your pavement, even though it's expected life to last 20 years, it wouldn't. So you got to do that routine maintenance. The other thing is that if you are only overlaying the street, if there are road-based issues, failures, or drainage issues, those can cause the pavement to fail prematurely. Another thing that's pretty common around here is frost heaving. And frost heaving is due to having high groundwater levels, especially in hilly areas, in rural roads, where the water is close to the surface. So that when that groundwater is close to the surface, it freezes during the winter, especially during a deep freeze. And that pushes up the road and introduce more cracks than you expect to happen naturally. So in those areas, unless you put in some extra drainage to pull that groundwater away, you're going to end up with frost heave problems that will cause the road to fail before it should. So, we can't rebuild streets from scratch. We just don't have enough money to do that. We have to apply different treatments to different situations. But we do expect with some additional testing or some more testing, so better quality control, we will get a better product. On occasion, something might fail earlier. We will continue our crack sealing. We had a program last year. We did several miles of streets. We are working on one right now. We'd like to do some early in the year, in the spring, summer, and then some in the fall, and keep up with the cracks. We also want to introduce some new techniques that have been used in other places, like cape sealing or fog sealing. For low cost, you can actually extend the life of the pavement. So get a couple more years before you start to do major work. I don't know if I'm helping you on your street, but
I think I'm encouraged that the fact that you are going to be doing testing for things going forward. That's great. Are there any additional questions or comments from the commissioners? Are there questions or comments from the general citizens? Ms. Ekman.
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate getting this spreadsheet and seeing the details of that large line item for the road paving. It does help, and seeing it 5 years out is really good. Of course, it's subject to change. I understand that. My question about the spreadsheet is, it says it was done April 10th, 2019, and the costs revised March 2020. And I know you've combined 2 years because of COVID, but I'm wondering if these costs are a year old now. are they still pretty accurate, do you think? Or is there going to be like another revision? Or have costs gone up significantly in the last year?
I was saying earlier in the meeting that we haven't really seen a significant increases in cost. We've tried to follow the trends, and so we haven't started receiving bids yet for this year. We'll know in a few weeks. We put out the 2021 bid, actually this week we're putting it out. So in a few weeks, we'll see what pavement costs are. So we still, those estimates were done with a contingency in the numbers. So hopefully that contingency covers any cost increases. And if the bids come in lower, we'll be in a better shape. But yeah, there are always estimates until you get the real numbers. And also, when you do a final design on some of these streets, you can find new things, or you can reduce costs based on changing the design as well. So we just use it as a guide for programming, the streets, as well as the program where to put the funds and so on.
Thank you. Anna, are there any other citizen comments?
Yes, Carlin Reed.
Hi, thank you, Carlin Reed, 83 Wits End. I'm pleased to see that you have the Temple Road and Isaac Davis roads on your fiscal year 22-23 roads programs. I've been talking to some folks and they were actually complaining to me about when those roads were going to be resurfaced. So I'll be pleased to report back that yes, it is part of your plan. And thank you very much for doing that. That's it.
Anna, anything else?
I don't see anyone else.
Okay, thank you, Stefan, and thank you, Stephen.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is a water system overview. Alan, you want to kick that off?
Sure, I will share the screen. Do we see water system overview? Okay.
Yes.
All right, so what I'm going to do my best is to take a presentation that can be about 4 hours on a good day and condense it. But no, I enjoy talking about this, and I'm going to do my best to be brief, and we can have a discussion conversation. But I think the interest was more than getting the details as far as a capital plan at this point. Excuse me, provide the commission with some of the newer members an overview so they can understand the system itself, and what some of the opportunities, challenges are that we're going to be looking at over the next few years. So, with that said, the water sewer division is overseen by a water superintendent. John Rogers is on the Zoom meeting. We have a technical group where we have a public works engineer. We have environmental regulatory coordinators. We have a management analyst who deals with our customers. It's not just infrastructure. We provide a service to the community and have water and sewer customers. We have treatment systems and pumping stations and facilities that need to be inspected, maintained, improved. We actually have a wastewater treatment plant as well that we have contracts ops for. Won't be talking about that today. And then we have a distribution collection system, which is the water mains and valves and service infrastructure that we're responsible for. So I'm going to take you through sort of an overview of our source of supply, the distribution, water quality issues, some of the demand management challenges, and then a brief update on Nagog Pond. In essence, for those who don't know, we have a mix of, we get our water locally for the most part. So we are not part of a large regional supply like MWRA. A lot of communities in the general, sort of metropolitan area are served. So their source of supply is MWRA, and they may have their own infrastructure and crews to maintain it. So Concord is evolved where we've gone from surface water sources. You can see here, this is Hydrogeo 101. a cross section where you see a water level. That's this line here, which in the surface is expressed as a pond, river, stream, reservoir. Underground, you can't see it. You may have a house built up here, but there is a source of supply in the ground which can yield, significant quantities of water. The challenge is the balancing act between what can be extracted, and used from the ground, from surface water systems. From the ground, it can be, sands and gravels primarily, but you can also have rocks, where there are bedrock wells in some communities. I know Littleton and Acton are both exploring bedrock wells that, could have potential high yields and are of interest. And then you have sands and gravels, which are the pores, what we at the beach, when you pour water into the sand and it disappears. You can kind of experience that. How do you get water from the ground? Well, generally you need a power supply, and you need infrastructure. And most people are familiar with private wells. They're usually 6-inch diameter or some, sort of smaller. With the municipal well, we are looking at, for the most part, wells that are in sands and gravels that may be, 50 to 70 feet deep, something like that, in these buried valleys. You install piping down into the ground with screens, and you can see the installation of a well in this particular image here. And this is actually a casing and pumps and a motor that's being installed in the well. And you can get, 500,000 gallons a day from one of these kind of municipal supplies. We've, again, evolved from surface water supplies, where the town's original supply was Sandy Pond in Lincoln. We no longer utilize that. That's used by the town of Lincoln. We have Nagog Pond up here on the borders of Littleton and Acton. And then you can see these dots represent, for the most part, infrastructure, with the exception of Pine Hill Reservoir and a Nurse-Nack Reservoir. Those are storage containers, large volumes of storage, 7.5 million gallons, that act as a relief valve when you're pumping more water than's being used, or you need more water than you're pumping instantaneously. That's what the reservoirs do. These other red dots down here with the blue areas around them are wells, groundwater supplies. And so our portfolio of supply includes a mix of groundwater supplies and surface water supply, Nagog. And then up here we have, if you ever hear of the Brewster well site, this is an area that we purchased land back in the early 2000s for future development. It's next to Autumn Farm, up off of Balls Hill Road. But again, that's on reserve for future development if and when necessary. That's the source of supply. The infrastructure to get the water from the sources to the throughout the community is in essence, think of it as sort of your heart is your pump and the source of blood, and your veins and arteries are where it sort of travels through the body. Imagine, so this is the town of Concord, the outline. What we're showing is highlighted in a color scheme is the location of the water mains. These are pipes that vary. Early on, they were, small diameters, 2-inch, some of the original pipes, and 4-inch. But conventionally, you don't put a main in less than 8-inch in diameter. And we have 8 to 16-inch diameter pipes throughout Concord presently. What's important on this image is the age of the pipe is exhibited by the color. So it's not just location, but age. And you'll see the yellow represents pipes that are 1950 to 1974. It's not a surprise. That's when a lot of development occurred. So you see a lot of yellow on this. When you see red, that's a very old pipe. And in essence, it's pre-1925. Well, we don't have a lot of it. You will see there is red pipe. And we essence use for maintenance and replacement or rehabilitation. Age and condition of a pipe is very important, and we spend a lot of money. In fact, we talk about the roads program, much like the roads, pipes are similar. They have a useful life, The difference is it's not a 20, 30-year life. It's usually a 75 to 125-year life, something like that. But they are very expensive and they need to be replaced or rehabilitated. And I think a lot of the communities in the Commonwealth are looking at aging infrastructure, and real challenges is sort of a lack of investment that we may be paying a cost if we don't sort of reinvest in that infrastructure that's really important for reliability of service and sort of carrying capacity with fire protection. Quick slide of all of our assets. Basically, you see a surface water supply, 6 groundwater supplies, 7 pump stations, 2, we call them advanced water treatment, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. The 2 large reservoirs, 134 miles of mains, that's water main in various age and conditions, and then over 1,300 hydrants. All this infrastructure, has a present worth of somewhere around $23.9 million. Maintenance, we have crews that go around and we can operate. We have valves in the system. Valves, just like your house with plumbing. If you didn't have a valve at your sink, the water would continuously flow. You can open, close it. Valves used in the distribution system are really designed to allow you to control flow in the event there's an emergency or a problem. So you can isolate when there is a failure or a water main break, so that you can isolate the main and do the necessary inspection or repair. That has to be routinely inspected, just like a valve in your basement with the water. If it's an old wheel valve, you haven't touched it for many, many years, you think twice before you do. Well, that's where a maintenance program requires you to sort of operate valves. And I know our crews spend time sort of looking and maintaining. When you have issues, it's unlike the plumbing in your basement. It's not inexpensive. It's large pipes and large valves. You can see this is a replacement of what we call a valve. When we move from the distribution to water quality, that's another major driver. So we have sources, we have distribution, then we have water quality challenges. I talk about water quality because there's a lot of money involved with treating or conditioning the source water so that it can be used for potable or drinking water purposes. And there are drivers for what level of treatment you select. And historically, the biggest driver, from the early, when the original systems went in, was not so much testing or water quality that you could, measure, although they did some pretty basic, measurements for water quality, but not many. Primarily it was customer satisfaction, visual, aesthetic conditions, taste, odor, sight. When I got here in 1996, there were a lot of challenges with water quality based on aesthetic interests, primarily with discolored water. And it was a combination of a need to develop a good distribution flushing program and a lot of investment that we made in some of the source waters to better condition or treat the drinking water. And then the flushing program, it's not unusual to pull out deliberately, scour pipes and clean it so that the water is fresher and better conditioned. As far as the quality control, the Safe Drinking Water Act is a federal act. It sort of mandates various standards for water quality. As I said, there's been standards, for decades, but what we're finding is it evolves. Part of the Safe Drinking Water Act is a desire to continue to stay current with changes in water quality. And what you'll see here is just an example of, over 130 compounds that we'll test kind of routinely at our sources. There are, changes, and they're ever changing. In fact, one of the larger challenges we have is on the horizon is what we call an emerging contaminant. It's a series of chemicals that were sort of manufactured decades ago, but have been used for various products for waterproofing, fire retardant, products, And we've talked before with the commission a little bit, but I think we've got a few new members. The unregulated contaminant monitoring rule is a rule that looks for emerging contaminants of interest from EPA. Concord did some preliminary testing for some of these compounds, I think it was just a few years ago, but the technology's improved. There's lower detection limits, and there is a movement, not just in Massachusetts, but in the region as well as nationally, on trying to get a better handle on these compounds. Are called forever chemicals. Polyfluorinated alkyl substances, or PFAS, is something that we see. And so we've been sort of tracking the development of regulations that are really going to impact us, we believe, as we move forward. We go back to the sources of supply, where the quality of each source is somewhat dictated by natural conditions, the recharge and the sands and gravels, and the unnatural conditions, which is human impact, whether it's septic systems, roads, lawn care products, or all of the above. If those get washed and sort of put into the environment, there's a good chance that we can pick it up. It could be sodium chloride, that sort of thing. The level of treatment. This is an example of the Deaconess well site across from the Concord Country Club. Originally, there was a pump station with what we call conditioning. We'd adjust pH. We'd add sodium fluoride for dental care. We'd add sequestering agents to try and bind iron so it wouldn't come oxidize and end up in your plumbing. It didn't remove it, but it bound it. But you'll see a larger, this represents the replacement for treatment that was inadequate when we realized we need to do more for the iron manganese that we weren't removing but was going out in the system. And so you go from hundreds of thousands of dollars for a fairly simple pump station and conditioning to millions to tens of $1 million for more enhanced treatment. And that's really where the industry is evolving towards. This is inside one of these standard pump stations, and this is most of our stations really just have basic water conditioning and disinfection. That's really the purpose. To where the Deaconess is now, you'll see this is a treatment process with a Lanox or green sand like material. This is designed to remove iron and manganese, but with it comes a lot of more complexity, a lot more size, a lot more sophistication, including the need for the introduction of technology. We've talked in the past a little about our SCADA system, and that's a ability to monitor real time and observe what's going on with the facilities. Because we have so many facilities, we can't have someone stationed at them 24 hours, 7 days a week. Unlike a large system like MWRA, which might have a few large treatment plants or facilities, we're a small system without a large crew with an assortment of sources that need to be sort of monitored and managed 24/7 without the luxury of having someone stationed there. The purpose is to meet the customer demand. That's why we exist. And just so the commission understands sort of a brief profile as far as the what our customer looks like. 61% of our customers are residential. We do serve some regional facilities. We have MCI, we have Emerson Hospital, we have a lot of schools in town. Excuse me while I enjoy some of Concord's finest. In essence, demands and needs that we have to sort of adjust our program, to serve. When we talk about customers, it's not just quality, it's the demand challenges. How do we help people develop more sustainable practices? Concord obviously has a lot of interest in trying to understand, sort of big picture sustainability. we've been working aggressively for many years to try and look at, the difference between our summer demands and winter demands. But basically, what this shows is a range of this on the y-axis. You see million gallons a day. So it goes up to 4.5 million gallons of a daily demand. And then over here, we just demonstrate during different times of the year. So the average day demand for Concord is somewhere around 2 million gallons. That's the average over a year. Winter, it drops down to about 1.6 million gallons. The average during the summer is about 2.5 million gallons. And during peak days or peak days in a row, we'll see demands of up to 3-4 million gallons a day. And that's generally associated with outdoor water use. That's what really kind of contributes to that kind of more significant peak. We've had a program in place for many years on demand management to educate. We have a irrigation system bylaw that requires certain controls and sensors on to try and optimize the use. The biggest challenge we have is wasteful use, where neither the customer doesn't get the benefit of the water. They're using more than they need, and there's really it's an expense and a burden. And so education goes a long way. We have a fairly advanced program for outdoor education. Indoor, year-round, are there opportunities? And we actually have a fairly good program where we've provided outreach and service for people on how they can improve their efficiencies. Most newer homes, just like you would expect, the toilet shower heads can be far more efficient than some of the older homes. And we've done a good job targeting in the past the older homes to provide incentives for them to replace some of this low-cost plumbing. We also have sort of to support or enhance our management and demand management program is Water Management Act. We are regulated, the water system is regulated through the Department of Environmental Protection when it comes to capacity or quantity of water. We speak to EPA when it relates to quality. Those are the drinking water quality standards for the most part. The state of Massachusetts has this regulatory framework that we call the Water Management Act. That's a program where any supply that can withdraw over 100,000 gallons per day is responsible for being either registered or permitted through the state. And Concord, like most large systems, has registration and permits for the various sources that we have. And we fully expect that that's reviewed every 10 years, and we're going to be on a renewal, slate for renewal, in the near future. We don't have a date certain, but we anticipate getting a notice to complete at some point in the not too distant future. And that's where we compile all the information about our system, what we pump from where, and submit it to the state to renew our permit. Part of the Water Management Act driver is not just trying to manage water from a consumption or customer demand, but also to try and understand environmental impacts. I put this slide up as there are different triggers that may sort of be state-driven to impose water use restrictions in town. And this is an example of a stream flow. It's a gauging station. You can see here in Lowell, which basically measures the elevation of the stream. The elevation translates to a certain volume of flow. And as the stream drops, the volume of flow drops. And there are triggers where the state would look at drought conditions that they would then communicate through the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. And that may have an impact as far as our restrictions that we impose. This is a little older, but I think this is from September 2020. a situation statewide where, based on the color coding, you can see different communities in different levels of restrictions. So Concord's not alone. Other communities, sort of are, abiding by the same regulatory framework. This is an example, I won't get into the details, of a fairly well thought out seasonal water demand management plan that allows us to, based on drought conditions and or potentially water quality issues that we may address, impose different levels of conservation or restrictions of use. And it varies from outdoor to complete restrictions of 1 day a week, to a ban, to water emergency where we may have a real problem and impose fines and that sort of thing. The demand management plan, for simplicity, we do a 1 day a week recommendation, whether it's required or not, for good practices. We're trying to get people conditioned to understand water the same day as your municipal pickup for solid waste recycling, just so that it's easy to remember. So we've been using that as messaging. And finally, just to talk a little bit about some of the kind of bigger issues, challenges, opportunities, depends on how you look at it. We have been dealing with the kind of a water treatment issue, which also sort of impacts our customer reliability with NAGOG. And you're all familiar. I'm not really going to go into a dissertation on NAGOG Pond, but just to locate it, here's Concord. This is Acton, Littleton. NAGOG Pond is located right on the border of. Here is, if I kind of zoom in a little bit, you can kind of see this is Route 2A over here. And as you drive by this kind of commercial complex, you'll see open water. The town is been using this source since the 1909. We own about 100 acres of land around the pond, primarily for resource protection. We've been doing that for the better part of over 100 years. And really, the fact that it is a high quality is because Concord has put a lot of time and energy into preserving, protecting that resource. If we go to a little bit into the history of NAGOG Pond, 1884, it's kind of important for the commission.
I figured out this was a step stool.
Oh.
Yes. Oh, okay. This is what it looks like.
It looks good. Just make sure it's sturdy enough to hold you in arm.
If someone could mute, just
One at a time.
I know, but make sure it can hold one of you.
Anna, can you mute for us?
And the idea is it folds up into a thin thing and it fits in the closet.
Yes.
All right, yeah, Anna, can you do that?
I'll show you if you don't make fun of it.
Okay, I won't make fun of it.
All right.
Hey, there's two things for that.
Oh, it's really
Boom.
small. Okay, what are they?
See if you can tell.
All right, I've just taken care of that. I apologize for that brief
Thank you.
prelude, whatever that was, interlude. So go back to, I'll share the screen. All right, sorry about that, folks. Okay, so the point of NAGOG Pond is Concord's very familiar with the use of it as a water supply, since 1909 actively, but it took actions back in the 1800s in order to get certain rights. There was many, many years where there was not a lot of other interests in the pond. Basically up until 1985 is when the town of Concord went through to submit an application to DEP when they developed the Water Management Act. It was a new act and developed to try and manage the waters of the Commonwealth in a holistic way. Concord put in a registration for that supply as well as the rest of the system in 85. Drinking water quality standards changed with surface water because of concerns for various microorganisms. And there was a requirement for systems to put enhanced treatment or filtration in that dates back to the early 90s. Concord, because the quality of NAGOG was protected and preserved, was able to get a waiver to, not require it to put treatment in. But they did get a waiver for the treatment, but there was a provision they had to enhance the disinfection. And so in 1996, an ozone facility was constructed and turned online. So we've been using NAGOG without filtration, but with enhanced disinfection since 1996. There were some land swap activities with the town of Acton. The Palmer land, some people may recall, was land that's become Quail Ridge. First it was a golf course, now residential development. But there was actually a property transaction between Concord and Acton to allow the owner and Acton to realize full potential development of the Quail Ridge area, where there was a lot that was exchanged. It was designated for a treatment facility in the middle of what was the Palmer land, because it was down gradient from the pond. It would allow water to travel by gravity to filtration facility if and when it was ever needed. That was conceived back in the 1930s. And so that land swap was, with legislative authority, was finalized in 2003. And then from 2007 to 2016, we had an abutter develop from golf course to combination golf course and residential development. 2013, we started to go through the early design of a compliant filtration facility and replacement of an intake. 2015 to 2020, we started permitting activities, both local and state. And they've taken the better part of 5 years, going through that process. Actually, we're still kind of in the mode of the permitting is complete. I'll also say in 2015, we entered into some legal issues and challenges that we started to deal with on water rights. Excuse me. And then recently, we've been giving you an update on replacement of the intake. We are actively involved with a construction project where we're going to replace a portion of the intake, the deep portion of the intake, and that's we're hoping to complete that this spring. And the big issues, the takeaways, and then we'll have some questions, is over the next 5 years, we're looking at major investments and attention placed in water treatment, whether it's NAGOG Pond, whether it's the forever chemicals I mentioned, or the PFAS, or even the combination of our surface water, groundwater supplies and treatment. We call it simultaneous compliance because there's a lot of regulations that we need to balance, and they're quality driven more than anything. We're going to maintain a program for replacing or rehabilitating our water distribution system, like the roads program, but on a different schedule. And the Water Management Act is really going to be, there's a new phase to it, which drought mitigation is a significant component of the state's goal of protecting, preserving the waters and of the Commonwealth, both for drinking water purposes as well as environmental protection. And that will likely result in more demand management challenges for all communities. In essence, and ideally allow us to develop and enhance our sustainability principles. So, and the water quality with water management is going to be a challenge because water management may have different limitations on different sources, and we have to balance the source quality with the mixing and blending in the system. So that's why I kind of identify over the next 5 years, we're looking at large investments, to the tunes of, tens of millions of dollars that we're going to be investing in our system. And that's basically, just want to give you folks an overview so you could know where we are and where we think we might be going. So with that, I'm open to any questions. Oh, I'm sorry. Final slide. I'll leave it on here. We are looking to do smarter water management, not just on the drinking water supply, but also on the stormwater management and wastewater management. And this speaks to an integrated approach where we're finalizing a scope of service with a consultant who's going to walk us through looking at the regulatory demands, the community demands, and try to figure out how do we do this, kind of 50-year plan that makes sense on all water resources and how they marry together. So, okay, with that.
All right, thank you, Alan. Are there questions or comments from the commissioners? David?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Quick question on, you just, Alan, first of all, it's terrific presentation. Thank you for the education. You mentioned we're coming up to a certain point where you're going to need to renew permits with the state, sounds like at a macro level. Any potential for surprises there, or is that something you skate through? I mean,
no, you do not skate through it. It's literally a reboot on how they've managed in the past. They're getting they put a lot of energy in the last 10 years to understand withdrawals and impacts and environmental impacts. And so they really do want to look at, individual sources, how they're operated, what sort of, controls there are, not just on the supply, but also on the system. And the drought management strategies, they've just revised the drought management plan for the state recently through a task force where they have, kind of factored in precipitation, groundwater elevations, drinking water supplies. And it's not just to deal with drinking water, but fire protection for agriculture, sort of more holistically. So we can expect this is not going to be a skate. It's going to be a ratcheting down on how do we manage it? How do we manage how do we monitor what we do? And, what do we do with leak detection in our system? How are we sort of managing the infrastructure so we're not losing water? So no, I'd like to say, it's going to be a fairly comprehensive review.
And when is that?
I would expect within months.
Oh, so soon. And
Yep.
let us know if there's anything, obviously you'll let us know if there's anything the commission should be asking or helping you with in that regard.
Yeah, and I expect we'll probably revisit once we get formal notice. They've been much like, they've had plans, kind of like we have plans, and then things happen. So.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Alan, I've got one. I know that we'd like to have water systems looping. Are there major areas of town where we don't have looping of the water pipes?
Great question. I'm going to share the screen again just so I can show you that schematic because it does speak to the competing regulatory challenges we have. And I will share, this is kind of a fascinating situation where some of the use during the summertime. So this is the water distribution system. And what you can see, I'll zoom in, is it's interconnected for the most part. But you'll see an area, for instance, this is Lowell Road coming out here. We have Monument coming out this direction. These are long stretches of main that don't loop to backfeed, or if we have, for instance, a break in this area, if we had a break in a pipe here, a lot of residents and customers are affected during that repair. So in a perfect world, the looping increases reliability of service because you can isolate and respond to trouble. It also allows for sort of a ability to maintain and preserve quality when there's we call it a residence time. The longer water stays in the pipe, the older it ages, the less effective our disinfection can become. And so sometimes we see in dead ends, we may need to we call it bleed a hydrant or let water run to keep the water fresh for public health purposes. But the combination is and usually we're most challenged during the summer because Nagog Pond has particulates in it, organics. It's fine, we disinfect, but there are organics in it that can eat up the disinfectant that we use if it's in the water. So during the summer, water can become, when we're using Nagog more, we can have challenges maintaining residual disinfection throughout. When we install a filtration facility, that's one of the benefits of the filtration plant, we'll be improving the quality, reducing the organics, and also enhancing the disinfection for the system. So it's a good question. Ideally, a loop is what we are after. Generally, when we see new developments, I know this commission looks at, if you're going to make an extension, can you loop the extension, for a subdivision or something like that? When it's, when there's a benefit. And what we've learned recently, for 4 or 5 homes, oftentimes maybe not so much, but for 25 homes or something, we'd be looking at a loop to maintain the reliability and quality in that development.
Thanks, Alan. Are there any other questions from the commissioners? Are there questions or comments from the public?
Alan, I just want to say thank you so much. That was a great overview. And I've been on the commission, it's my 4th year. And I think that's the first time I've seen that great overview. Thank you.
You can thank the chair. He thought it'd be a good idea to do this.
Excellent. Nice job, Jim.
Thanks.
Jim, Mr. Rydell is raising his hand.
Yes.
Thank you. First of all, Rod Rydell, 324 Main Street. I'm here representing Council of Aging. I'm just an observer for the committee and report back any items that are of interest to the Council of Aging. I just wanted to make one comment to your excellent presentation, Alan. I really appreciate it. I work with other federal authorities on regulatory matters, and just wanted to draw your attention that it has been an increasing trend that people are not allowing blending to achieve a quality standard. So if there's a source that is a particular issue, provides a particular issue which is always out of spec for one of your requirements, it's very likely sometime in the future, don't know exactly when, that you're going to be likely to be forced to bring that source into specification and not be allowed just to blend it with all the other sources to achieve the specification. But thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Anna, are there any other comments?
I don't see anyone else that's asking to make a comment.
Okay, thank you. Our next item on the agenda is the director's report. Alan, I guess you're gonna have to kick this off again.
Well, the good news is I can kick it off quickly and you can hear some of the other talented people here at Public Works. So I'm going to share screen. We will start with, before I share, get to the right place. Hold on one sec. Just make sure I have the right presentation up. Okay, do we have the director's report presentation up?
You do.
All right, so we'll start with Melissa Simoncini, who oversees the trash recycling curbside program. Melissa, are you there? There you go.
I'm here. Thanks, Alan. Melissa Simoncini, Environmental Services Program Administrator. Thank you all for sharing your lovely afternoon with us this afternoon. Alan, do you mind backing up one slide? Just to start off, a quick update. The compost site is scheduled to be back open to the public starting on April 3rd, pending any weather. Hopefully we don't have another April Fool's storm like we did a decade or so ago. But that will be opening up soon for the season. Next slide. And as many of you probably already have seen, we have sent out our curbside renewal notices to all current subscribers. If people haven't received them yet, give us a call because something may have happened and we want to make sure your service doesn't get interrupted and continues. Next slide. And with the gorgeous weather, it brings lots of planning and recycling events. We will be having our drop off, no swap off on May 15th. We're working with the IT director to improve the sign up process, and that is scheduled to be, or signups are scheduled to be started around April 15th. So keep your eyes open for that. And then we, in order to offset the demand on drop-off day, we're hosting a number of kind of smaller events. On Tuesdays in April, we'll be collecting bulbs, batteries, mercury items, and hopefully styrofoam for those Tuesday evenings for the people who don't have a lot of items to bring. And then on Friday, April 2nd, we have our business recycling event in the morning, and it will be open to businesses first thing, and then from 10 to noon, we've opened up to residents who also have just a few things to bring, so we can offset some of the demand on the drop-off day. Other than that, I don't think, oh, I do have a little bit more to report along with kind of the spring recycling events. We've started to do some of our outreach. Last Friday, we presented to the League of Women Voters about our municipal solid waste recycling and curbside composting opportunities here in town. And we'll be looking forward to getting those slides posted on our website and the League's website, and getting the presentation out to the larger community. That's all I have for today. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Melissa. Steve Dukran, are you available?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, great.
Yes. So it's been quite a busy month for engineering. We have a lot of items in the written report that's in the packet, but we'll just highlight a few. This one shows some work being done by National Grid on Walden Street, where they are upsizing their main from 8 inches to 12 inches. And so the work has started, and it's because of the busy street and the extended work, it's going to take a while. This work is also crossing the border into Lincoln, where the same main is going to be upsized. I need to highlight once again about the struggles we've had with National Grid in trying to get them to come up to the standard that we need in terms of their construction, in terms of their engineering. I don't mind saying it in public. It's really a struggle. We have to watch them like a hawk. They tend to portray themselves as victims, telling us that they don't have to do these things in other places, and which normally we find out is not true. All right. The other one is they also are moving quickly on this small job on Bedford Court. It's a small distribution line that they're replacing. And we're happy that they're moving quickly, because this is one of the streets that Stefan's trying to get ready for repaving come good weather. What I'm showing here is the Hubbard Street plan. It's part of our Complete Streets project. So this section here is Hubbard as it comes into Walden. The improvements there include, not just new sidewalks and curbing, but also some bump outs to make the crosswalks safer. So if, for instance, the one between the parking, if a pedestrian steps out, they'll still be protected between parked cars as they try to cross the street. This plan is being submitted to the Historic District Commission because the section of Hubbard Street is in the Historic District, and we will be presenting this to them on the 18th of this month. Hopefully it goes well. We wanted to show this slide because we are applying for a grant from the state for culvert replacement. They offer up to $200,000 per project. We selected this one. Again, it was submitted a couple of years ago without success, but we thought we would use this one again. because it's undersized. And we intend to, in the future, put a sidewalk up on the street. And if we could upsize this culvert, lengthen it, we'll have the room to put a sidewalk because the street narrows down to that location. However, it turns out that most of our culverts that lie under the streets, and we have about 65 of them, they're not good candidates because to get a grant, you have to follow state criteria for sizes. And the size is predicated on passing wildlife through the culvert. So the openness ratio requires that you just not only widen the culvert, but also raise it up higher. And every one that we've looked at so far, it's gonna involve a lot more work than $200,000 can pay. You would might have to relocate the utilities and raise the road high enough that it will have impacts on properties and so on. So we couldn't find a good candidate within for the culverts within the streets. So we are looking at culverts that are going under trails on town-owned properties. Those also qualify. So should we find one, then we will put in for that application. I think that's it for engineering.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Jim, do you want to take any questions as we go? I'm sorry, I didn't ask you how you wanted to just go through it or.
Well, let's wait till the end, Alan.
Okay, all right, thanks. Aaron McCloskey, are you available?
I am.
All right, so Aaron McCloskey, the Highway Ground Superintendent. Aaron, I'm a little upset. I got to go to this slide. It's so nice out right now, but. Well,
thank you, Alan. Aaron McCloskey, Highway and Grounds Superintendent. So February was a very busy month for the Highway and Grounds Division. We had a number of snow events, and those are detailed in the director's report. And seen some of the highest snowfall we saw out of any month so far this winter, and hopefully that's the last of it. Although I have a feeling we'll probably have some more before the season is complete. This is a photo of, I want to say from the photo, maybe that's Elm Street Bridge or Main Street, one of the bridges on Main Street. We're moving snow from the sidewalk on the bridge deck. We have 3 sidewalk plow routes in town that we operate, a Bombardier Prinoth sidewalk machine. Those machines are 5 feet wide. There's a number of areas in town that it cannot be plowed by the machine just because it's simply too wide. We have to look at other solutions for removing snow. This is one of the techniques that we will use post-storm to try to remove snow on the narrow ways to allow pedestrian access across this bridge. So this is one of our skid steers removing snow. Thank you. So obviously this year we've had a number of challenges throughout the operation. One of them is, with COVID, is the delay of some fall sports seasons. So MIAA delayed what they're calling fall 2 sports seasons, which include football, to start in February. Obviously, that poses some unique challenges for the teams and the athletic departments on areas where they can practice safely in the middle of winter. Concord's fortunate enough to have 2 synthetic turf fields in town. One is Doug White Field, located behind the Concord Carlisle High School, that is maintained and managed by Concord Public Works. The second is the Memorial Football Stadium, located in front of the high school, that is maintained and managed through the school department. School department reached out to us a few months back, asked if we could assist with snow removal and snow plowing, since we have the equipment and our staff is properly trained and has the skills to remove the snow. So we said we would help them. And so these are some photos of the field kind of just after and maybe a few days after on the larger photo of removing snow from those turf fields. I think I've seen it on the news. Some programs in the Commonwealth had to cancel their season because they didn't have fields that could be plowed. And I think Concord, we're fortunate enough to have the equipment, the resources, and the skills to be able to do that, so we can accommodate, the players that have had to, delay their season. Just glad to see that they're back out there and we're able to do what we can to help support those initiatives. This is a photo of the compost site located 755 Walden. That site is a multi-use field. Melissa refers to it often, and we utilize it for a number of things. This photo specifically is referencing all of the wood debris and brush that we collect either through routine maintenance of our public shade trees and town trees, or after storm cleanup. We've got a number of storms, one actually significant event last week, number of trees came down and required a long response. All of that debris is trucked to this compost site and stored annually. We had a contract, and we have our tree services providers, Mayor, came in, chipped and removed all the brush. Also, we have a number of logs and other items, wood debris and wood waste that was declared as surplus and cleared and removed. So this is an annual exercise that's done in order to clear space for next year's wood material and debris that we're obviously will collect through our operations. In the report listed, we received 5 new vehicles over the last month or so. This is a photo of 2 of them. 3 of the vehicles were heavy duty trucks. The bottom one shows a international dump truck with a front plow and a wing plow, also equipped with a sander. We had 2 other heavy duty trucks. One's a swap loader with a front plow and a sander, and the third was just a standard dump truck with a front plow. The photo to the rear there is a Ford F-550 dump truck with a plow. This is one of 2 that we received this past month. So we're excited to have that. That we talked about capital, and that's in some previous meetings, and having the right equipment. And this is the equipment that is really needed to maintain the roads to the highest level, and to meet our mission in the wintertime. So these trucks, while they have plows on them, and highlighting the snow plow trucks, we will be using them year round without the plows for a variety of operations in Concord Public Works.
Thank you, Aaron. John Rogers, Water Sewer Superintendent, you available?
Yes.
All right.
Yep. Yeah, so let me give a couple of highlights of what Water and Sewer's been doing over the past month, and just talk first about our largest construction project that is going on right now, and that is the pump station improvements, rehab and improvements. This is at Lowell Road, right by the Kais Road campus area. And what you're looking at here is some of the improvements. This is fiber reinforced plastic grading that goes into the wet well in that, which is a great improvement over what was there. And there's a lot of other, you just see some electrical equipment there. This project is still probably a month away from really being started up. And if you go to the next slide, that's the other Assabet pump station. This one is very close. In fact, it's now sort of operating almost entirely on its own, getting ready to pull the bypass. Might have even been pulled out late this afternoon. Some of the things to talk about also is part of the improvements are improving the pumping system. We're now pretty much industry standard is variable frequency drives for the motors that drive the pumps. That's what you're looking at on the right there are the panels that control those and other of the equipment that's in these. And you're looking also at the wet well there coming in to the going into the station. And you'll notice a sort of a lifting arm there is for lifting out equipment as needed. We've got sort of installation davits around the perimeter to make that able to reach into a couple of different access ways. So that work is continuing. And I think Alan already mentioned the next project that we're really just getting started on, and that is up at Nagog Pond for the intake. He mentioned that a bit. We'll probably be having lots of great photos of that coming up, hopefully with the ice removed. This also is the ongoing operations. The guys are out there every single day finding all kinds of things that need to be maintained, in some cases fixed. We, pretty regularly get hydrants get bonked, and maybe especially during snowstorms when there are plows out and they're not so obvious during the fighting of the storm. So anyway, this is a repair of a hydrant that just got bonked, and that is our guys continuing work there. And the final thing I just wanted to emphasize is that during the operations team's efforts under COVID, everybody soldiered on. We kept going, but one of the things we realized is that as we were soldiering on, we weren't getting back to basic training. And this is one of many training sessions that we're going through this spring. While people have still got availability, we don't have as much demand for operation and maintenance needs, but we're ramping up for the season. This is for confined space entry safety training. And we had both refresher and, for the guys who'd never taken it before, an opportunity to use tripod and harnesses for entering space. And this is over at the Deaconess facility. I should say the previous slide was we did the sort of classroom piece in our water and sewer garage. Worked out great, got plenty of separation for folks, and we've got others of these coming up. So those are it. That's all we wanted to highlight for water and sewer for today.
Thank you all. Other commissioners' questions or comments? Andrew.
I just had one for Aaron. It was a general question regarding snowplow damage. So anecdotally, I've noticed that a lot more mailboxes seem to be crushed recently, at least in my neighborhood. It might have been just the nature of when the snow came and how it piled up, and the frequency of storms and ice and whatever. I'm wondering I noticed that several, I haven't actually seen the neighbors, so I haven't been able to tell them this, but several of them are new in town, and I don't know if they're aware that Public Works can assist them in repairs. I've seen a lot of bungee cords, and I don't know. I know some people have reached out to get some help, but I just don't know if there's a proactive effort made to reach out when the plow driver's aware that it's happened. I understand that you're driving a plow and it's loud, but I assume sometimes it must be aware of it as you're driving through. So I just didn't know if there's a citizens outreach program to it.
So we do have, as far as we don't have necessarily a citizens outreach program, I would say the presentation that I presented in November is probably as far the extent of the outreach, proactive outreach. During a storm, we do run a snow desk, which is essentially our dispatch. If a driver does notice that they did damage something, whether it's a mailbox or anything else that might be out in the roadway, we do document that, we track that. And then the following working day, the administrative staff reaches out to the homeowner to let them know of our mailbox replacement and repair policy. And that's essentially either we will install a new mailbox with a new post, the standard United States Postal Service specification for that, or we'll provide $40 towards the repair of any type of decorative mailbox. New installations are typically done in the springtime, or as weather allows. We will put out either same day or next day a temporary mailbox. It's essentially a standard mailbox spec in a 5-gallon bucket with cement so that they can still receive the mail. We do encourage residents, if they notice it, to reach out to us. We track those. We have a running list. So feel free to reach out to your neighbors, have them call the Highway and Grounds office, and we'll be happy to shoot out there. We did notice it's not uncommon when we have the heavier snow events, 20+ inch events. It's really a lot of the snow volume coming off the end of the plow does the damage, is what we're seeing more oftentimes than the actual plow blade hitting the mailbox. And it's tougher to tell when it's not the actual vehicle striking it, that it's the winter of snow. But we do encourage our drivers to say something and notify us. And the team, it's a close-knit team. They communicate very well, and no damage is done intentionally. I will say that. So I think, sometimes we just have to talk through that with the residents and let them know that.
Thank you.
Seeing no other commissioner comments, are there citizen comments?
I don't see any, Jim.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now we're done with the director's report. Are there any commissioners' comments that they want?
Well, we can't hear you, Jim.
Just hit a bad patch, Jim. Hopefully you can hear us. Okay, Jim, we may be able to hear you now. Try that again. We missed that.
Okay, I didn't know if Anna had any citizen comments that wanted to be made.
I don't see anyone
there's
asking.
Yes, there is a hand up. John Althouse has his hand up.
Okay, John?
He does?
Yeah.
Hi, thank you. I want to try to keep this brief, given that it's been a long meeting, but I wanted to discuss briefly issues with sidewalk plowing. As you who got in the commission, who got my email saw, there was damage all the way back in December, in the December storm, to a stone wall right at the front of my property. I could actually hear and feel it in my house when it was hit. This is the second time the wall has actually been damaged. It happened about 10 years ago. The town repaired the wall. It's damaged again, and just over the weekend, the wall collapsed partly onto the street. So I know that Aaron and his crew is going to be taking care of that, when they can get to it. I understand that can't immediately be repaired. But I want to talk not just about my own situation, but in general about the plowing. There's two issues here. One is the physical damage from the plow itself, and that's what happened to my wall. But in addition, I've spoken to neighbors along Lexington Road who have had sprinklers actually pulled out of the ground when the plow goes onto their lawn area as they go by. About 6 or 8 years ago, it happened at the grave site at Miriam's Corner, where there's a British soldier buried. And there was 2 feet of that corner just stripped away and pushed into the street. So there is some physical damage with the, I guess it's called the bombardier. And it is a giant machine. There's places where the sidewalk here in Lexington Road is 2.5 feet wide. The 5-foot machine doesn't work that well in that situation. If nothing else, it's tilted as it tries to go down the sidewalk, and that causes a lot of problems with steerage. The second issue, though, is the snow blowing itself. And it's an issue because the town policy, I've done some research on this, the town policy says that the snow should be blowed on the street side of the sidewalk. But it appears to me, at least on Lexington Road, it is never put on the street side. It is always blown into properties. And for me, it goes 8 or 10 feet into my property at times and creates a pretty giant berm of sometimes frozen slush and salt in a garden. I maintain a fairly extensive garden right along Lexington Road. And in fact, in the 20-inch storm, although the crew bypassed the stone wall after I discussed it with them, they did continue up beyond there on my property and put an additional 3 feet of snow against a specimen tree. Stewardia cost $3,000 to install. It really doesn't like having a lot of that kind of snow put on it. It's very different than the snow that falls from the sky because it's pushed there by the machine. It adds weight, breaks branches, as I said, frozen salt and slush. So I would really like us to consider looking again at the policy to see if we can either implement the policy that is documented, which is to blow the snow in the other direction, or if needs be, to change the policy. So that's my short version. I had some videos I was going to show, but I think that you've had a long enough meeting, and I will, unless somebody really wants to see some videos, I think I'll leave that for another day.
Thank you, John. Appreciate your comment. I know that Aaron has some discussions with you, and obviously, sounds like we have to have some continuing ones.
Yes, and Aaron, by the way.
Any other comments?
No.
Doesn't look like it, Jim.
No.
Annie. Yeah.
I don't see anyone else.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, is there a second?
Second,
In that case, on a roll call vote, all those in favor of adjourning, James Terry, yes. Andrew Boardman,
Yes.
Jeff Vassar,
Yes.
Casey Winslow,
aye.
David DeLong.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Our meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
And thank you, Ellen, thanks for the staff. They've done a great job of the presentations that we had today, both in the director's report and before then.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Everybody have a good night. Enjoy the spring weather while we have it.
Bye, thank you.